Welcome back into Clay and Buck. Critical that we have a Senate win and Senate control after this election. And we want to focus in on some of the most important battles for the Senate, state by state, especially as we're in the closing weeks here of this election cycle. Tim Sheehy is with us now. He is a former Navy SEAL, an entrepreneur, and running for Senate in Montana. Tim, if you win, chances are we have control of the Senate, so no pressure, but everyone's counting on you.
It's a high-stakes election, no question. And, all these races up and down, of course, the White House, Senate, House of Representatives, we've seen what's happened the last 3.5 years when just two of those, chambers have been in Democrat control, and it's been a catastrophe. So the Senate is our firewall. The Senate's our firewall for personnel, for cabinet nominees, judges, and common sense legislation. And we haven't had a lot of common sense these last 3 years. So this year's our chance. The majority runs right through Montana. And right now we're in the lead, but we got to keep the pressure on. We got 45 days left, and it's a critical race.
Tim, appreciate you coming on with us. What can you tell us about what the voting process is like in Montana? When do ballots start getting sent in? How does the process play itself out? As for people out there who have not been paying a lot of attention to the Senate, Republicans are going to pick up a seat in West Virginia. That gets us to 50-50. Then you could be the guy who gives Republicans the majority in the Senate in Montana. Huge race. When does the official voting begin?
Well, of course, Election Day, November 5th, in person at the polls, but the vast majority of Montanans vote early through the mail. And that process will start here in just a couple of weeks. So our election really begins here in about 2 weeks, and most ballots will be cast prior to official Election Day. So we've been running to an October 5th finish line, to be quite honest. We're going to keep running after that. Luckily, we have a fantastic Secretary of State, great governor, great Attorney General. So at the state level, we've got a very secure election process. Montana's constructs the election process here. Doesn't mean we can't be vigilant, but the reality is we do have a strong team at the state level. But mail-in will be the majority of it. Ballot harvesting is legal here in Montana. Absentee, of course, and vote by mail. So it's going to be hyper important, number one, that Republicans, and frankly all Montanans, everyone deserves to vote, but we get out the vote. People have to show up and vote. That's an increasing problem across America. And for Republicans, we have to embrace the fact that the rules allow us to vote in many different ways: absentee, via mail, in person, early. We have to get out there, and we got to make sure every single legal way we can vote, we vote. Because if we don't, we're bringing a knife to a gunfight. So it's going to be a very close election any which way we cut it, but it's going to be secure here in Montana. I have confidence in that.
Two-parter here for you. How long do you expect the counting process to go? Because that's a question we get from a lot of places if people start voting on October 5th there. Secondly, how important is it for people in your mind to go ahead and vote early? Because Montana in particular, the weather can be crazy by the time you get to November 5th, right? And I imagine people have to drive sometimes substantial different distances to get to a polling place. This can eliminate the uncertainty for anybody out there listening to us in Montana by going ahead and getting your ballot in.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And people are rightfully skeptical. They said, man, I don't want to stick my ballot in the mail. Someone's going to grab it, open it, look at it. They either don't want to be outed or they're worried about election security. Those are very fair concerns. And to be clear, in a perfect world, I agree, voter ID, in-person day of elections. But guess what? That's not the law of the land. So we have to use every possible way to get it out. We learned our lesson as Republicans in Nevada in 2022 when there was a lot of pressure from the Republican side to say, hey, we only vote in person day of the election. And then, as you correctly pointed out, the biggest snowstorm in like 30 years hit that night. And, we ended up losing by, I think, under 10,000 votes. And, had that storm not hit and had those Republican ballots gotten in early, we likely would have won that election for Laxalt. So we are encouraging and have been encouraging everybody, vote early, vote via mail, vote absentee, any which way, just make sure your vote is counted. It will be counted securely. The election will be secure here. But we got to get started early. So if you get a mail-in ballot, fill it out the first day you get it and get it out of there so we can get it in the ballot box and ensure that your vote is going to be counted. Going forward, I'll always support election security legislation of any kind, from voter ID to obviously ensuring only citizens are voting to election day with voter ID. But the reality is, like I said, that's not the law of the land today. So we got to vote every single way we can that's legal. And in Montana, that really means mail-in ballots. Get that mail-in ballot in early.
We're speaking to Tim Sheehy, running in Montana. Tim, what's your site for people who want to pitch in, help, donate, whatever they can do?
Tim4MT.com, Tim, F-O-R-M-T.com. They can learn about the issues, of course, learn about me, and obviously if they have the capacity to support us financially, every little bit helps. We're running a grassroots campaign. We can never compete with the Democrats, as you know, as far as on-air spending. Out-of-state dark money just rolls in. It's astounding how much money they bring into their campaigns. So we're always going to be underfunded. But we've been running a ground game campaign, grassroots, door knockers, yard signs, door hangers, volunteers out there just working the pavement, and that's paid off for us so far. We're ahead in the polls, but we got to stay that way, and we'll need your help to do that.
And just wanted to ask how it's looking with Kamala Harris, a particularly weak candidate, running a really no-show campaign, pretending to be something completely different from what she has been in politics for really her entire time in politics. She's the Democrat at the top of the ticket. Jon Tester, the incumbent that you're running against in Montana, does he just pretend like is he distancing himself from Kamala? Is he pretending he's not a Democrat? Like what's the game that he's playing? Because he knows you're in striking distance. He's got to be worried.
All of the above, and this is the classic two-faced Tester playbook. Goes to D.C., votes with Elizabeth Warren, votes party line, supports every piece of Biden-Harris legislation, impeached Trump twice, voted for against all of Trump's nominees, voted for all of Biden's nominees. I mean, he's a party line Democrat hack. And of course, as every time he's up for re-election, these final 90 to 120 days before election, all of a sudden he's a gun-toting, Bible-thumping, border security Republican. And he's the guy that recruited Kamala Harris into the Senate in 2015 when he was chair of the DSCC. Was basically single-handedly responsible for her national political rise. Has, of course, endorsed the Biden-Harris campaign last election. Even has been on record this election cycle saying it's the most important thing in the nation to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to the White House, but of course refuses to actually endorse her because, as usual, as you correctly stated, he's got to distance himself from the radical agenda that is so deeply unpopular in Montana and frankly across America. And it's astounding to me. It shouldn't be astounding. We should be used to it by now, but it's astounding to me how the media is just letting her skate away, and all the Democrats, frankly, who supported her in the past, that just scot-free over their support for her radical agenda. That from the unions who are refusing to endorse her, to working class Americans, to legal immigrants who are saying this agenda has been terrible for us. We cannot let it continue. And these Democrats, like Jon Tester, like Sherrod Brown, obviously like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, this agenda is bad for Americans, and they're not holding their feet to the fire. They're letting her conduct these not even softball, they're T-ball interviews. I mean, they're pathetic. And but she's getting away with it. But luckily, the average American's seeing through it, and we're seeing the polls look better than before. In Montana, the switch from Biden to Harris is actually helping us. I think nationally, it certainly buoyed the Democrat side of the ticket. But here in Montana, she's even less popular than Biden. So I think it's going to be a tailwind for us here in Montana on November 5th.
We're talking to Senator Tim Sheehy, the next senator from, I'm giving you the title early, but we believe the next senator from Montana. We certainly hope. I asked you the question because there is a lot of question about ballot security and election outcome. Given the number of mail-in ballots involved in Montana voting, when do you anticipate knowing the final results or results that can allow us to know who won? Because there's a lot of states out there where we go on weeks sometimes not knowing what the outcome was. What should we expect in Montana?
I'm pretty confident we're going to know election night or at least early the next morning. I don't think it'll drag on, multiple days. Again, we've got a great Secretary of State and team there. And, I think we've also invested in some just good common sense. Senator Bill Hagerty out of Tennessee with the Sentinel Action Fund, he's been investing in a lot of election security initiatives around the country and ballot security initiatives from ballot curing to ballot harvesting. And I think what we're going to see in Montana, again, I can't speak for other states, but I think what we're going to see in Montana is a swift and secure vote count that's going to let people know very quickly, who came out ahead in Montana in this election. So I anticipate knowing, probably, midnight or soon thereafter on November 5th or November 6th. Could be wrong. Hopefully it doesn't drag on too long, but I think most of the races in the state are going to be very secure races. We are now becoming a reliably red state. So, the governor's race, congressional races, and obviously the presidential ballot here will be very, very clear early on. We're obviously really the only battleground flip seat here. But again, I have faith in our election process here in Montana. I think we'll know pretty soon.
Tim Sheehy. Tim, appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me back. We're almost there. Thanks for the support.
Yes, sir.
That's a big deal, Buck. gambling markets, poly market, 80% chance that he's going to win. The work has to be done, but there's a quiet panic setting in the Senate that it's going to flip back to Republican control. We spend a lot of time, deservedly so, focused on the presidential race, but there are a lot of big Senate House races in many of your districts out there in many of your states. And he has run a fabulous campaign and is in really, really good spot, given the fact that we're adding a seat, Republicans are in West Virginia. Odds are very good that he is going to be able to flip Montana. But as you just heard him say, he needs all of you who are listening to us, Montanans, to come out and make it happen for him. Unfortunately, Buck, I didn't make it happen for us. Prize Picks, big swing and a miss. I took another L. We're trying to win 10-1, to be fair. We're not trying to win straight up. But there are a lot of college football games coming up. It is going to be fabulous fun for the NFL as well. If you are, like me, a huge football fan, got games tonight. Really good game, actually. Got a lot of you listening in Nebraska. Got a lot of you listening in Illinois. Unexpected top 25 matchup between Illinois and Nebraska. That's going on tonight. Then you roll into all the big college football games. My Volunteers going on the road against Oklahoma. A lot of fantastic games. Then, by the way, Cowboys hosting the Ravens. A lot of big numbers being posted in terms of viewership in the NFL. This audience over-indexes for football fans massively. Probably not a huge surprise. I want you to sign up for Prize Picks right now. Next week, I'm going to give you another pick. We're going to hit on one of these, I promise. And by the way, if you think Clay Travis has no idea what he's talking about, he's a moron, you can fade me. That is, you can take the opposite of whatever I say, and maybe you'll be able to win there. But you don't have to do anything. All you got to do, Buck, do you think I'm a moron? Are you going to start fading me here?
I mean, I definitely don't think you're a moron, but I do think it'd be fun to fade you just so that way I could win and you could lose sometimes. So I might do this Prize Picks thing is fun.
It is really fun. That's the key. I mean, you can put down $5, you get $50. It just makes football a little bit more fun. And maybe you're out there listening and your husband or your boyfriend, diehard football fans, you could blow their minds by having some picks yourself. Doesn't cost hardly anything. $5, give yourself a chance to win 50. Put down 20, you can win 200. Whatever the dollar figure is, not much different than a movie ticket. You sit down in front of the games, have some fun. You can play in California. You can play in Texas. You can play in Georgia. Sometimes those states feel left out. All you have to do is use my name, Clay. Get $50, prizepicks.com. My name, Clay. I'll have another pick for you next week. Prizepicks.com. My name, CLAY.